Today we're going to be making chainmail links. So everybody like that have seen my chainmail link stream, and when I'm weaving it together, they're always asking, how do you make them? And so this is how I make them. Right. So basically, the first step is to find a metal supplier that will supply you a whole bunch of rings. First things first, you got to find a metal supplier that'll sell you these. So this is what I use. This is my brass wire. I don't have any steel wire here at the moment because I don't really need any steel, but I've run short of brass wire. So I'm going to use my last supply of brass to make the rings that I need. So what you do is that you take this brass, and what the goal is to turn it into this. So this is what we want to turn the brass into. This is basically a spring. It's a compressed spring coil, and we're trying to make this. And the way we do that is by using this jig that I built. It's a very simple jig. So here we have the main spool of wire. It's just got a spool on it. So you just feed it through this way, and then feed it through this way, and then from here we use these guide rollers to guide the wire up here to this area of the plank right here, so you can see how it feeds through. So we've got the main wire and these are the guide rollers that guide it to a hole that we made in the plank here. And how it works is that we get a drill and we grip it to a long shaft. It's important to make this shaft as wide as you want the rings to be. But anyway, all right. So we're here. Okay. So this is how we're going to turn the rings. We're going to turn the raw wire, spools of wire. Metal suppliers should be able to sell you this wire in this form, or like with a spool. It doesn't matter, as long as you can, feed it onto, your guide, your chainmail, your coiling jig. It will be fine. So the goal is to make this, and once you have this, you can make rings. So the way we do it is using this. This is my homemade one that I stole off the YouTube channel. I forget which video, but basically it's just got 3 roller wheels, so that guide the wire into the final coiling, the final shaft, which is powered by a drill. So you don't have to spend so much effort coiling things. You just use a drill. So that's what we're going to do here. There are other ways to coil this wire, but this is how I do it. And so with this plank and the 3 wheels, you just need a vise to grip it, and then basically you can turn your bench into this jig. So my jig's pretty much set up. It's got the drill over here, and we've got the wire fed through. So we're about ready just to coil this wire. Just to get you a better shot of what's happening, I think this is a better shot. You can see the wire being fed through, and you can slowly see. So the thing to note about the shaft I'm going to coil it around is that the shaft has a notch that I made for the end of it. You can make it with a hacksaw, but I used a Dremel for ease. So this is the chainmail tutorial. So basically we're just going to turn the wire around this shaft. And the first part's always the most tricky bit. Once you have it, it's pretty easy. So because of that notch, we fed the wire through the notch, and the shaft itself is gripping the wire. And then it's just a simple matter of turning. All right, just turning it slowly but surely. And then once you have it, you can just speed up. So there's going to be kinks in the wire, and you have to be very aware of that, because kinks could throw your coil a bit out. You just got to be flexible, and you just turn as we go. So the thing we want to prevent is the wire coiling in on itself. And the second thing to watch out is that sometimes the spool here, like it tangles up. So you got to prevent it from tangling before it becomes, like, you know, bound to itself. So yeah, this is basically how chainmail links are made. Well, this is how I make them. Okay, just think it's starting to get a little tangled here. I'm just jostling it around so it's loose. It's like spinning gold. Uh-oh. That's fine. Okay. I'm hearing those tangling noises. Just jostle that around, make sure the wire isn't like. Alright, cool. So now we have our coil. Just, you know, cut it off here. Always wear safety glasses because, you know, the wire does flick back as you cut it off. It is under some tension, so don't lose an eye over this. Nothing's worth losing an eye over. Alright, and then we have our long coil, right? This is it. Once you have this, you can basically make rings. All right. So, assuming we converted all the brass to this coil, all right. Now enter phase 2. So phase 2 is where we convert. So once you have this, you can start making rings. So, just show you how that's done. All right, so have a can, we want to fill it with rings, and this is how you could do it with garage tools. All right, so so we're going to use this. It is also homemade, but basically we have a block of wood that is going to hold our coil as we cut through it, basically. I'm just going to even out the edges. Alright. So the thing to note about this block of wood is that while this side can fit the coil, the other side cannot. So the borehole doesn't go all the way to the end. There's a bit of wood at this end that prevents, you know, the coil from pressing through. That is super important. I made molds where it went all the way through, and it just made it 10 times as more difficult to cut rings. So the wood that is, you know, blocking this from traveling through is actually going to provide your saw with most of the force because it's pushing back against the coil as you do the whole sawing motion. Right. So we'll turn, you know, this into rings. All right. So the first thing to do is to make a blunt, and to get not in the way you think though. So, you know, this is just masking tape. try to get a wide, roll. What we're going to do is we're just going to wrap. This is the most efficient way I could think of to wrap the coil with masking tape. So what you want to do is you want to wrap this entire coil in masking tape. You can use a spiral, but I choose to go lengthways. So this part's also pretty important. As you're sawing, as you're like basically want to hacksaw the chainmail rings into existence. We're basically going to cut them with a hacksaw blade. So it's not rotary; it's a back and forth motion, sawing motion. Naturally, as you cut through like this coil, like some rings are going to be cut first, and they're gonna, without taping it, it's going to fly off with the sawing motion. So it's really important to first use duct tape, well not duct tape, masking tape, to hold it together, wrap it up like a doob, a blunt. Do you smoke the blood? Wrap it up in masking tape before you begin cutting. As for the rest of you, this is alright. So now that we have our coil wrapped up in masking tape, we can finally get around to cutting it. So the way we do that is taking our mold. Remember, we can't, the mold will hold the coil in, like so. So all we got to do is first we got to adjust this vise, point back outside. Okay. All right. So first we get the mold, and then we want to cut a bit of coil to the size of the mold. So we're just going to cut something like that, and we want to just cut appropriate widths. Okay, so basically we've cut a coil to the length of this mold. So it's going to fit in like that, and then I'm going to grip it inside this vise. So we're not just gripping the coil, but we're not just gripping the mold, but we're also gripping the coil. So the coil so it's actually pushing the coil into the mold, making it really secure for us to saw. So then, oh yeah, I forgot to mention another feature of this block is that it's got a saw line in the top. So you drill into it, but not all the way through, to make one of these, and then you also saw into the middle of that hole, and that's where this blade comes in. So you just fit it through the top of that mold and just saw through the coil. I was meant to hold that. Just steady, long, steady strokes. So you'll feel a slight jump as you cut all the way through, but that's a sign that you've cut through the coil. A few tips to do it as you're, when you're starting out. Usually it doesn't get stuck in there, but sometimes you may need pliers to get these out. You want to speed of which, I'm going to get some pliers. So to get them out, so it's like wedged in there. So you just get some pliers, and that's where the The masking tape helps. So as you can see here, with a saw, we were able to cut all the way through. And lo and behold, when we peel off the masking tape, we got fresh rings. And we can just, just put them in the can. But right there, that's what we want. So that's how we make our own rings from raw wire. Put them in the can, take over. So that's how it's made. That's everything. So first we start with the raw wire, and then we coil it into. So we first start off with the raw wire. We coil it into the spring using our jig, then wrap with masking tape, and then using the mold, cut using the mold to produce for chainmail rings, and that's the entire process. So there is one more process that you have to do, and that's obviously weaving it all together. So here's our piece. Obviously we've been through the motions several times, but here we have our rings, built, not bought. It's a very awesome thing to claim. The more you build it, the cheaper it is for you, but the more time it will take. But ultimately, I feel like this is more fulfilling. Anyway, so basically, with all our newly cut rings, this is what we want. Basically, this is the thing we've been working so hard to build. We take our ring and we just start weaving it into our piece. And eventually, your piece will start to grow out like this. It's pretty much knitting, but we're knitting together metal. So the side effect is that you'll totally get the appeal of knitting. That's essentially what you're doing, but it's a cooler version, I think. So yeah, and we're just adding it to the weave like so. And you just keep going. So that's the entire process. I hope you learned something. I hope this tutorial helped you in maybe considering making this hobby a little more accessible. So I'm looking forward to seeing pictures of your creations with this process. Maybe there's a more efficient way to do it, but this process works for me because I wanted from the outset, I wanted to make sure that I didn't need to spend a lot of money on like specialized machines, because there's plenty of machines out there that make this a snap, but I'm limited by money, and I wanted to do a process that only used basic garage tools, so you don't really need to maintain a really sophisticated machine. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the process in the tutorial. Consider upvoting, liking, and following, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.